Well, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the delay, but we've had a bit of a technical hitch. The IT doesn't seem to be working at one end or the other end. But we have the advocate here for the applicant. I'm Councillor John Andrews, and I'm from Sherborne. And I have to go through a few procedural issues first of all. So first of all is the election of chairman.
I'd like to nominate yourself, Councillor Andrews, as chair.
I'm happy to second that. I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Apologies. Democratic Services, we got any apologies?
Apologies for absence were received from Councillors Cathy Lugg and David Morgan, substituted by Councillors Les Fry and Sarah Williams.
Thank you, John. Declarations of interest. Have we got any declarations of interest from the councillors? That's declared, then no declarations of interest. Urgent items, John.
There are no urgent items, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now go to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the Dorset, Seaborough, Manor Farm, Bedminster application. First of all, I'm going to do some introductions around the table. Let me get to the right, to make sure I've got all the right people. Right, so I'll ask my fellow councillors to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Les Fry, representing Dorchester West.
Good morning, Councillor Sarah Williams, representing Bridport.
Thank you. I'll now go to the officers, and we'll go to the licensing officer, please.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Aileen Powell. I'm the licensing team leader, and I authored the report.
Legal.
Good morning, I'm Phil Crowther. I'm the subcommittee's legal advisor.
And Democratic Services.
John Miles, Democratic Services. I'll be taking the minutes for the meeting. Thank you.
Elaine Tibble, Democratic Services.
Thank you very much. Now I'll ask the people that are in the room to introduce themselves. And I know we have the responsible authorities, so the police. Could I ask you to introduce yourself?
John Bean, representing Dorset Police.
Thank you very much, John. And I do believe Broad Windsor Parish Council want to speak. So could you introduce yourselves, please?
Yes, Councillor Jackie Saw. I'm the Broad Windsor Parish Council and also Upper Marshallville Parish Councillor. And then we have Yvonne White, Seaborough Parish Councillor, and Natalie Roberts, Broad Windsor Parish Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I'll go to the advocate for the applicant.
Hi, good morning. My name's Samper. I'm from the licensing guys, and I'll be speaking for Hot Towels Limited, the applicant, this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Could I just confirm that you have the authority from the applicant to and the consent to proceed with this hearing? For instance, if we come across any questions you can't answer, you need the applicant to answer, that you'll be able to answer them.
Well, I'll do my best. I mean, clearly you might want to hear from the applicant at some stage. But we'll just see how we get on, because you know the tech is what it is, but we're ready to go with what we've got, sir.
Okay, so in one word, can you confirm you have their consent?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first of all, I'll just go through the way we run this hearing. We'll ask the licensing team leader to outline her report. We all have the opportunity within this room and the advocate, Nick, who's not in the room, to ask the licensing team leader questions on her report, and of course the police as well. We will do that first. That will be the councillors first, followed by the objectors and the people that put in their words to us. So we'll ask Aileen to outline the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't intend to read the report or go through anything because you will have already read it. I would like to make one small apology. The ward member was listed incorrectly in the report, and it should be Councillor Simon Christopher. This is an application for a festival for 9,999 people. There is a long list of conditions in the operating schedule, but I would like to draw your attention to one in particular that will need to be thought about, and that's the first aid condition. It's number 2, and what it says is there will be one first aid kit for 21 to 50 people, which obviously for an event of this size is probably not going to be adequate. I have been advised verbally that there is no intention to hold the event in 2024, as detailed in the operating schedule, but we have got nothing in writing to that effect. The timing of applications with SAGs is an interesting one. There is no perfect way to do this. You can have licence applications before SAGs. You can have SAGs before licence applications. There is often a consideration for applicants regarding ticket sales. They prefer to have licences in place. So that might be the reason that this one is proceeding. The applicants did ask us if they could have this meeting adjourned. That was 2 days ago. And you, as the licensing committee, could adjourn this meeting at any point to a date and a time that would need to be fixed before this meeting is concluded. One of the reps related to the actual site plan, saying that it included part of their land. I understand that the applicant will be redrawing the plan to exclude this area, which is known as Little Jamaica, but we have not had a new plan to date. If this is to be changed after the hearing, then a variation of some description will be required. I would also ask you to get clarification on the CCT condition number 26. It is a little vague, and for a condition on a licence, it does need to be more precise than if cameras are there. It needs to be either there will be cameras or there won't be cameras. And that's all I've got to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Aileen. So I'll go to councillors now. Councillors, got any questions for the licence team leader?
Not at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Not at the moment, thank you.
That's 3 of us then. So we'll go over to the police. Mr. Bean?
No questions at this moment, sir. Thank you.
And the parish? And the advocate?
Yes, okay, that's really helpful from Eileen there. Okay, so the first aid kit, 21 to 50 persons, that's fairly standard. The actual first aid response and provisions will be included in any forthcoming event management plan. Secondly, I'd like to confirm that due to the timing of this, there will be no event in 2024. Okay. Thirdly, the redrawing the plan, she's absolutely right. Little Jamaica was thought to be included, entailed within the land. That's now been confirmed it's not, and we will be submitting a minor variation in due course with a new plan excluding Little Jamaica. So I'm sorry about that confusion. And lastly, yeah, right, the CCTV condition, it says if fitted. Now that can take the form of, depending on what the safety advisory group and come up with on the EMP, you know, a van, you know, we fit it with cameras that come up into the air to surveil the event, or it can take the form of body-worn video, and that will clearly be the subject of discussions with the police at any a safety advisory group meeting. So that's why that condition is necessarily vague. I think it does include the word if fitted, if required, whatever words appropriate there. So that's how I'd address you just on those 4 observations, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we go to the applicant then. So if you'd like to outline your case, Nick.
There we go. Okay, well, good morning. I'm Nick Samper from the licensing guys, and we are representing the applicant today, being Hoptails Limited. By way of introduction, this is an application for a premises license, being an area of farmland comprising a licensed area for the provision of entertainment and licensable activities adjacent to an additional unlicensed area dedicated to car parking and the like. Dawson will be a family-friendly music festival providing a broad and eclectic range of popular music, specifically intended to appeal to a wide audience of varied musical tastes. Patrons' catering needs will be provided for within the event, and the provision of hot and cold food and drink throughout the event also. Therefore, the application is submitted to authorise licence of activities for a maximum of one event per year, and has been written with a provision for the change of dates, moving from one year to another. Now, this year's event was planned, you're absolutely right, it was planned for Thursday the 18th to Sunday the 21st of July, and future events taking place on a consecutive Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday in July annually thereafter. However, there's clearly insufficient time now to prepare fully for such an event this year, and as such, liaison must take place with the county safety advisory group, with an event management plan needing to be submitted before any such event can take place. Now, the proposed operating schedule sets out the necessity of an agreed event management plan, which will be developed as the event grows and with due regard to the direction, advice, guidance and leadership of all the responsible authorities through the Safety Advisory Group. The event management plan is a living document that grows, adjusts and flexes from year to year, event by event. Now, by contrast, a premises licence, such as the application before you, is a set in stone document which can only be varied through very rigid procedures fixed by the Licensing Act of 2003. The detailed approach to planning and delivering any such event is always set out in the event management plan and not the premises licence. Now, it is true to say that there is much concern generated by this application. People have asked to see this event management plan, including sections on noise, traffic security and sanitation management. Well, in our experience, that actually comes later, and those specific plans cannot really be written until any licence is granted, as clearly the event management plan is conditional upon the grant of the licence and the extent of the grant of that licence. Now, it's true that the application has been granted with a view to up to 9,999 attenders. However, such an event doesn't appear overnight on the first year. These annual festivals grow year by year as they attract a following. This application has been written to allow the licence, any licence you might deem fit to grant, to operate without a further need for amendment until it exceeds that number of 9,999, if indeed it ever does. Of course, the alternative open to the applicant is to submit consecutive and abutting temporary event notices, each allowing for up to 500 participants, all operating to create one larger event. That's commonly done. We've done it ourselves many times. For example, one temporary event notice would cover the audience enclosure, another one would cover the beer tent, another one would cover the food marquee, and on it goes. And so it goes on. Now, we've applied for many events in this manner over the years, and on other occasions we've also applied for one premises licence covering an entire event, the model which we've been instructed to apply for on this occasion. I think it's essential to point out to everyone that were a premises licence to be granted today, no event can ever take place unless the event management plan is agreed and signed off by the Safety Advisory Group, consisting of expert professionals across the council and emergency services. That is a clear and transparent condition within this licence application. It is the Safety Advisory Group's decision at that forum on what is safe and manageable at this site. This process today is simply the first hurdle to clear in order to initiate that future process. Now, as you'll be aware, each application should be judged on its own facts and merits. The significant merits of this application is a quality application, correctly conditioned with specific, appropriate, proportionate control measures, thus minimising any potential for that any of the licensing objectives would be undermined. Now, in this hearing, the burden is on the applicant to show that the proposed operation, supported by the proposed operating schedule, is capable of promoting those licensing objectives and will not undermine them. Any representatives trading under any premises trading under the operating schedule before you, wrong. Let's start that thought again. Any representatives against this application must show that this operating schedule will not promote the licensing objectives and must demonstrate that with evidence. And in our submission, any subcommittee properly advised can only refuse the application if it is found on the evidence of the representatives to be not capable of promoting the licensing objectives. Now, you may ask yourselves, why do objectors need to produce evidence? Well, the answer is found in para 9.43 of the section 182 guidance, which clearly states, and I quote, the authority's determination should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for promotion of licensing objectives and proportionate to what's being what is proposed to be achieved. Now, significantly, there's not a shred of evidence before you today which challenges or criticises in any way the operating schedule, the applicant, or the designated premises supervisor whatsoever. There is absolutely no history of disorder, noise complaints, or indeed any other cause of concern evidenced involving these premises or this applicant or any other event put on by Hoptails Limited in the past before you. That is an undeniable and self-evident fact. So let me first walk you through who has, or who rather has not, in this case, raised any representation or objection, and the licensing authority, being the lead responsible authority for all licensing matters, has made no rep. Trading Standards and Children's Services, the responsible authorities to protect children from harm, they've made no rep, and Public Health, who are the lead for substance misuse, and the Fire and Rescue Services, Planning and Highways Department, they all raised no objections. Environmental Health, being the noise and pollution experts and therefore the lead agency on the public nuisance licensing objectives, endorse it. They've come to terms and we've agreed them. Consequently, they raise no substantive objection. So you can rightly assume that in our submission, that in the opinion of all these responsible authorities, this operating schedule does not undermine the licensing objectives. Otherwise, they'd be here in the room or online with evidence to argue vehemently against it, as is their statutory duty. This hearing is an evidence-based decision-making process, and you as a committee cannot be insensible to the fact that only the police have raised concerns, and those concerns surround security issues which will be addressed upstream by the Safety Advisory Committee, of which the police are key members. Okay, we're left then with the objections from the police and the local residents. Now, I do understand their concerns. I'm not an insensible person. I do understand their concerns. When you look at an event, especially when you look at an event such as Glastonbury, which isn't a million miles from you guys, that has an attendance of 220,000 visitors. That was back in 2022. But this isn't Glastonbury we're talking about. There are hundreds of these small pop-up festivals occurring around the UK in the summer. Many family-friendly events, such as there's a couple I can think of. I can talk to in great detail because we've got the licenses for them. So we've got or we've had first-hand dealings with them. Firstly is Rock the Barn at Lower Chilstone, sorry, I should say, which is run by the Round Table, and then there's Nostock in the Hidden Valley. Both of these are in Herefordshire, which cater for around 5,000 attendees and cause absolutely no issues or footprint whatsoever every time they occur. Neither is it rare in Dorset. I think there are 12 festivals this summer in Dorset alone. Now, the representatives raised questions about a lot of issues, such as litter, traffic management, safety, security, first aid, fire, and even flash flooding, all of which will be addressed in the event management plan and signed off after careful scrutiny and consideration by qualified and experienced professionals, officers of the regulatory of the responsible authorities on that safety advisory group. Now, proximity to the River Axe has been raised, and some people worry about some people even worry about festival goers wild weeing in the Axe, for example. Now, compared with the current challenges around the whole-scale pollution of our rivers and beaches at the moment, I'm not sure that the prospect of a few people weeing in the Axe is actually, well, I described that as negligible in a way of risk and harm. But as it happens, we will be serving a new plan upon the licensing authority, which shows that the festival goers will no longer be granted access to the riverside. And yes, you're absolutely right, there was that issue of permission to use an area which is labelled as Little Jamaica on the plan by the side of the river. Okay, we totally accept what we've been told and have removed it from the licensable area, and it is no longer entailed within this application. There's mention of the site of specific scientific interest. Yes, the River Axe is so denominated, but this event only occurs for 3 days, 3 or 4 days, 3.5 days, and it's therefore not a permanent feature, and therefore I'm not convinced that the restrictions around SSSIs are therefore engaged. And certainly environmental health, with whom we've discussed this application in great detail, have raised no objection on these grounds, of neither have the Environment Agency, the Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, Natural England or South West Water. Now, traffic management, we've got this, there's this recurring feature within the representations about worry about damage to the road structure and traffic management. Some think that this is the wrong place for such a major event. Well, I'd question it's a major event, but it is an event, and we are where we are now. As these events go, it is quite modest, and traffic management will be addressed as part of the event management plan. In fairness, neither the planning nor the highways departments have raised such concerns, and traffic matters are not strictly, well, they're not included in any of the licensing objectives in any event, and therefore do not sit before you. Now, people also worried that festival goers will be leaving the site at 3 o'clock in the morning when the music finishes. That simply doesn't happen at these events, as the attendees return to their tents after the music finishes at such events. Now, the reality is that a steady stream of festival goers would arrive on a Thursday, and a steady stream would depart on a Sunday, with minimal ingress and egress on Saturday and Sundays, as attendees stay for the entirety of these events, because that is indeed what they have paid for, and that's included in the price of the ticket. There are worries about noise. Absolutely, yeah. Music performances in the open air always raise such worries. Now, we've agreed conditions proposed by the environmental health team. They're very comprehensive, all around noise management, monitoring and controls, and they will be built into the premises licence, as well as being addressed in the noise management plan, which forms part of the event management plan. You'll find all the correspondence between us and environmental health in your bundle, and full details of those robust measures proposed by environmental health and accepted by us are self-evident for all to see. There are worries about crime. Now, I have to report that small festivals such as these are notoriously crime-free. Obviously, security will be addressed in the event management plan and signed off by the Safety Advisory Group, of which the police are a major contributor. Now, the police raise the issue that excessive drinking could lead to crime and disorder. Of course it could. I was a police officer for 30 years, and we all know that, yeah. However, there is no actual evidence of widespread crime and disorder issues at small festivals in Dorset before you. The licensing guys, my company, we're part of training provision for staff that work at summer festivals, and all staff, you can make it a condition but of this license, but it will appear in the event management plan in any event that all staff, prior to the commencement of any event, are trained in responsible alcohol retailing, and at the risk of repeating myself, that security forms part of the integral part of the EMP, which is signed off by the SAG. Okay, substance misuse. Issues are raised by some representatives. Some work has actually been done around evidence of all known drug-related deaths at music festivals between 2017 and 2023. This was collated by cross-referencing media and social media content when a national database contributed to by Correns, for example, and communications with stakeholders such as public health authorities. The search identified 18 drugs deaths at festivals over those 6 years. That averages 3 per year. And there's no doubt in anybody's mind those are tragedies, but by comparison, there are about 2 people killed by lightning strikes every year and about 30 others seriously injured. Now, considering the millions of young people partying at such events annually, that figure is remarkably low. Most of them have involved ketamine overdoses, and nearly all of them, I believe, have occurred at the largest festivals. I mean, the really big ones, the Glastonburys and what have you. I know of no such deaths at small festivals or any in general or any in particular to Dorset. And lastly, would finish up by reminding us all that Public Health, who are a responsible authority and the statutory consultee in this process, they've raised no objection to this application on the grounds of substance misuse. Okay, so I'd like to talk to you very briefly, and you must obviously take your advice from your legal advisor, who I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd just like to talk to you very briefly about fear and speculation. The representatives speculate that were you to grant this license, then they fear that there will be problems. Now, there are two main reasons why fear and speculation are in my submission inadmissible in these proceedings. Firstly, para 4.3 of that 182 guidance clearly states that your determination has to be evidence-based. Fear and speculation of what might or might not happen at some undisclosed point in the future as a consequence of any decision you make today is plainly not evidence. And secondly, there was a ruling in the Thwaites and Wirral Borough Magistrates Court case that appeared before the High Court, Queen's Bench Division, back in 2008. And the judge in that, Her Honour Justice Black, she gave some directions in her findings, in her judgment. And she said that your decision today should be actuated by, and I'm summarising here, so I'm going to leave it with your lawyer to advise you on this, but your decision here should be actuated by proper and real evidence. There's no history of problems at these premises. Nothing before you from the responsible authorities other than the police, which is a quite general and generic representation. The potential for any such issues is more than properly addressed in the proposed conditions and will be nailed on, absolutely nailed on and nailed down by the event management plan and the safety advisory group. Now, in any event, Parliament has already provided a mechanism to deal with future problems emanating from licensable activities at these or indeed any other premises. And they're well known to you. It's the Premises Licence Review provided by Section 51 of the Licensing Act. So even were you to grant this licence, which can never be delivered without an event management plan signed off by the Safety Advisory Group, and were problems to ensue, then the mechanism to control them is self-evidently provided by the aforementioned Section 51 review process. So look, I've been talking to you for quite a while. I think I'll rest now and take any questions that you might have for us. Would that be in order, Chair?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Semper. It's a very good summary of your application.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I will now ask the councillors if they have any questions for you.
Thank you very much, sir. Tell me about how you're going to deal with the traffic. I mean, it's not necessarily a licensing objective, but it is under the, you could say, crime and disorder or public nuisance, dealing with the traffic around there, because it's narrow village country lanes, not particularly well maintained at this time, not used to heavy traffic. Can you tell me about that, please?
Yes, certainly. The answer is, I don't know, right? Because that will be part of the event management plan that is placed before the Safety Advisory Group. I know how it's done in other places. I've told you about Nostock in Hidden Valley, or I've told you about Lower Chilston, which is on the Duchy of Cornwall's land that I have been involved in. And there is a comprehensive traffic management plan, and there are routes in, and there are routes out, and there are reserved routes for emergency vehicles and what have you. But as concerns the details of the event management plan, I'm not a former emergency planning officer. I was a licensing officer, amongst other things, of some repute. So the actual specifics of how the traffic management plan, which will be a significant chapter of the event management plan, will be presented and signed off by the Safety Advisory Group, is upstream of the process which we have initiated today, sir.
Thank you. That's all noted. I think that the location lends significant challenges to coming up with a constructive traffic management plan, simply because of the lack of roads and lanes there and the narrowness of the roads.
I absolutely take your point. And if, in the opinion of the Safety Advisory Group, the roads will not support the event in whatever format or numbers it is applied, that plan is placed before them, then that will all be reflected there. So, and you're right, you know, you're absolutely right. There is an element of nuisance, but traffic and parking and things like that, they do not speak to any of the licensing objectives, and therefore, quite strictly speaking, I'll be advised by your lawyer on this, your legal advisor, sorry. I do not believe they sit before you as a licensing committee. It'll be more of a use of the land around planning.
Phil, can you comment on this, please? Because I think this is a potential factor.
Through you, Chair, yes. It's right that transport and traffic issues are planning issues. It's for you to decide on advice whether or not those could tip into safety or nuisance issues, and if so, whether those could be conditioned.
Thank you, Phil.
Sir, I just come in. I'm not a local man. We operate all over the country, but there will be traffic management plans to do with the following events that are held in Dorset. I mean, you've got your Poole Harbour Festival, your Camp Festival, Westbourne Music Festival, the Bridport Festival, Let's Rock in the Purbeck Valley, Wonky Donks, Beast-Sider Seaside, Shaftesbury Fringe, World of Love, Stomping in the Quamps, Chesel Rocks Festival, and the Jurassic Fields Festival. They're all addressed. The traffic management on the road infrastructure around these events is all addressed within the event management plan and signed off by the safety advisory group, sir. And like I say, I don't want to give you the impression that I'm not listening and I'm not insensible to the points you make. A simple point I'm making, sir, is these considerations and these plans and decisions are made by the safety advisory group further upstream from the process that we're into today. In my submission, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, all noted. Just that before you come up with a traffic management plan, you've got to have some roads that you can use to build into that plan. Without the roads, you're struggling. But I'll leave it there for the moment because that is a concern for me that, yes, it's not a licensing objective, but it may create crime and antisocial behaviour or public nuisance in the location of the event.
Yes, and in the absence of a traffic management plan that is yet to be written, and in the absence of evidence of public safety and public nuisance and crime and disorder issues arising at the other festivals that I've read out, I don't think I can help you any further, sir, other than to point out that it is something that will be fully addressed by the responsible authorities and the security and the safety advisory group, sir. Thank you. That's just, I mean, fire and rescue. Okay, everyone thinks the fire brigade do fires. They do so much more, any form of rescue. They've had a look at this. The idea of 5,000 people partying in these fields for a few days. They've raised no objection around rescuing people. Further than that, I'm just not sure that I can assist you further without having a traffic management plan written, presented to a safety advisory group and signed off by a safety advisory group, which will happen in about 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Semper. I'm going to hand over now to my other councillor, but just before we go any further, I did visit the site on Tuesday morning to have a good look around, and I understand the roads and all the systems that are around there and the state of the roads as well. So just to let you know that fact, I'll hand over to Councillor Williams now.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of questions. First of all, looking at this photograph of the festival site, can you actually tell me what size the main festival field is, please? Because it doesn't look very large at all for the potential capacity.
Yes, the plan is as it is. I'm afraid, due to technical issues, the applicant is not with us, and we've been unable to patch our office into this call to be able to talk through that plan with you. So I'm sorry, I cannot talk at great length on that plan. I mean, the most important thing about that plan is the red line around the outside, which is the licensable area. Everything else will be resolved by the event management plan, which we placed before the safety advisory group. That's about the best I can do in the absence of my other two parties, ma'am.
Right. And my second question, which possibly you won't be able to answer either, is looking at the second photograph. There are a number of properties fairly close to the site. Do you know how far away those properties are from the festival site, please? And that's the whole festival site, the camping and the parking.
Yeah, no, again, I'm afraid I haven't got a scale plan in front of me here. However, you will see from the environmental health conditions, which are prescriptive, which are detailed, which are enforceable, measurable, achievable, and whatever, that the likelihood, the prospect of noise nuisance affecting the nearest noise sensitive receptor has been addressed by them thoroughly, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And just one final question. The beginning of your statement, you said this is going to be a family-friendly, eclectic music festival. And then further on, you said particularly for young people. Can you tell me a bit more about the demographics planned for the festival, please?
I'm afraid in the absence of the organiser, I can't, but I can talk to many other of these. You have these smaller events are more family friendly, and people will bring you buy a family ticket and you bring your young children. I think there's a carousel involved in that plan, a play area for younger children, ma'am.
Right, thank you. I've just crossed out a load of questions that my colleagues have just asked. So the festival's planned from Thursday to Sunday. When will entry be starting?
It will start. It will start on the Thursday, but most people, the arrival of the kit and what have you, but most of these things get going in full on the Friday, yeah. And then Sunday is sort of cool down, sort of chill out, kind of wind down vibe to it.
Okay, so what you're saying then, that all the kit's going to arrive on Thursday and not the Tuesday and the Wednesday and the build up to it? Because there's a lot of kit to be had there. I mean, I've been involved in festivals myself. And,
there you go.
You're going to need 2 or 3 days to set up.
Right. Okay. Again, smashing. I bow to your. You and I both have experience of these things. Yeah, it depends on how much you're moving in. I mean, some of these, as concerns important things like lighting rigs and the electricity and whatever. It's not something you're going to bolt together in 5 minutes, is it? You're absolutely right. That will all be subject to the event management plan, which will be signed off by the safety advisory group. Like I say, what we are seeking here is a permission. Okay, it's permission. It's the first hurdle, and from your experience of putting on events such as this, you'll know that you apply for the license first, and if and when that is granted, and to a proportion, a volume, a size, it is granted, then you go on to the precise planning of it. That will be done by a company called Mojo Events, I believe. They're lined up for that part of the process, because I'm a licensing consultant, not an events consultant. So as concerns the fine details of how long it takes to set these things up and what have you, that is an upstream discussion and decisions to be made by responsible authorities and the emergency services, and later in the day.
Yeah, I just relating to the nuisance it's going to cause to people in and around the roads of Seaborough. on those occasions, because this will be a 10, 12-day event with all the traffic that's coming in and out of the site until the Tuesday or Wednesday after the event as well. Yeah, it is something that the SAG need to take into consideration if this application is granted. And I have to say, it is a bit of chicken and egg, you know, what comes first? Does the license application come first, or does the planning come first, or does the SAG come first? Because you haven't got an event management plan, which you're actually presenting, that it all gauges around the event management plan. So I think the sooner you push if this application is granted into the SAG and an event management plan, the better. And if they're not happy with it, if the license is approved, they will have plenty of time to look around it. So thank you very much.
No, you're absolutely right there, and that is why all plans. Sir, you're absolutely right. That is why all plans to do anything in 2024 have been shelved. You've got to take people with you, and it's got to be right. And things that are rushed are rarely right. So that's why it's put back. In the event of success today, that's why any event is pushed back to 2025 to allow the event management plan with the noise management plan, sanitation, security, everything else in there to be prepared, considered, and properly on these issues properly addressed at the safety advisory group, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of points here. Can you tell me what experience the organisers have got of and applicants of running such events of this size, please?
My understanding is, he's not here to speak for himself, and this is why we're in a bit of a disadvantage. My understanding is that Hoptails have put on other events in Dorset before. We did discuss, they did come up as part of a conversation with environmental health. However, I haven't got them to hand, and I'm at something of a disadvantage in that Sam is not able to give details of the events. There have been events, and they have. What I can say is there have been events, and these events have passed off without any issue or footprint to the responsible authorities. So,
thank you very much. But with the very greatest of respects, we have to take your word on that. We can't question that. You mentioned earlier there have been no drug deaths in Dorset. Well, we know there has been one, certainly in the not too distant past at Festival.
So that's not what I said. I said I knew of none. All right, I'm very, very careful. It's actually a criminal offence to come in here and tell you lies. All right, to willfully mislead you. I am very careful in what I say. Okay, I wasn't aware of one, and I said that there was no evidence of drug-related deaths in Dorset at festivals before us. Yeah, I think. Well, I know what I said because I've got it written down. So that was the point I was making. I'm sorry if I gave you the impression otherwise.
No, it's fully understood. And we're caught between a rock and a hard place where we have to make decisions on how well managed this event will be. But every time we ask a question, and I appreciate what you're saying, it will be considered in the event management plan, but we don't have that detailed plan in front of us, so we can't consider how well. And we've heard the licensing officer mention about the first aid kit, and I take your comments as well on that. But that just gives us a degree of concern that they're spending details on how many safety pins and plasters they're going to have rather than looking at some of the other issues that which may be more relevant.
Yes, that's absolutely fair point. Those first aid kits tend to go into the control room, okay, because there is, in case somebody turns up the control room, the event management van, for want of a better word, point, whatever, so people can get first aid there and then. Clearly, as part of any event management plan for numbers, or for an event of these numbers, there will be first aiders provided. And they're either commercial companies or St John Ambulance or whatever that turn out and provide these services. And that all forms part of the event management plan, which is signed off at the safety advisory group. So, yeah, you're right. It is this chicken and egg thing you've all mentioned is absolutely spot on. Goes to the heart of this. What we're asking for is a permission to go on to the second hurdle, where all these details are thrashed out. Okay, the what, the where, the how, the when, and what if, immediate actions in the event of, what if this happens. The emergency planners responsible authority, I used to have a handle on this in a supervisory role. I didn't do it myself. I had people within my team that dealt with this. But there's an awful lot of thought and an awful lot of science. It starts with a thing called the Purple Guide, the Purple Guide, and all this is dealt with upstream, but that's a very expensive process. Engaging people to do event management plans, and then sitting down and liaising with all the sourcing all the various constituents of the EMP, like who's doing the security, who's doing the CCTV, who's doing the first aid, who's doing sanitation, whatever. That is an expensive and time-consuming operation. Okay, and that is why it's been our experience to apply for a discreet, modest application, okay, to get the go-ahead before all that planning and all that expense is incurred. The alternative, as I've explained in my presentation, is to put in a succession of coterminous, or not coterminous, adjacent, abutting temporary event notices with 500 persons in each zones. Done that quite a few times. That doesn't attract it is much less likely to attract a hearing. It's certainly applications for temporary event notices, temporary licenses, most people call them. They do not. It's to put in a succession of coterminous or not coterminous adjacent. There's something going on with the tech. Reba, can you put yourself on mute, please? Thank you. Okay. So what happens is that when you submit a succession temporary event notices for something like this, it actually precludes the public having a say in that. The only two organisations that can object to a 10 is the police and environmental health. Now, environmental health have already signed off on what we've proposed here, and that would be a discussion with the police around the security for 10s. But we've decided to go up the route of applying for a premises license, which gives some permanence and gives some certainty around the license, and puts the certainty around the planning in that it makes it a condition, an non-negotiable condition of the premises license, that there is an event management plan, and which is signed off by the Safety Advisory Group. So that's where we're up to with that. Sorry, I went on a bit there.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Do you know if the applicants considered any form of public transport to get people in and out to reduce the number of vehicles on site?
I'm sure they will have done, sir. I'm sure they will have done. But again, honestly, I'm really worried about boring you. Those details of how you get public service vehicles on and off, and pick up points and what have you, that is sorted out upstream of this, sir.
That's fine. That's noted again. And again, another point about emergency services gaining access to the site should an emergency, if there's a vehicle broken down in the road. I appreciate you're unable to answer that question, but it's one we have to leave hanging in the air because we don't have an answer to that. Yeah, I'm
not convinced we need an answer to that with respect, with massive respect. I'm not convinced we need an answer to that. What we're asking for is a permission to go on to the next stage here. And if those things that you rightly raise are not properly addressed and thought about and mitigated, those risks mitigated, then that is picked up in the EMP, and that is picked up by the SAG. And the EMP would never be signed off unless all these professionals, bodies, are happy that it would be, that those risks have been addressed and mitigated, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Phil, can you just come in there, please? If the authorities are unhappy with the event management plan and the highways traffic man and so on, and the police are unhappy with it, I take it that means that the event, even though it has a license, if it were to be granted, can't go ahead.
Thank you. So if the licence was granted and if the conditions were imposed as proposed in the operating schedule, the conditions say that the event shall not take place until the event management plan has been agreed by the licensing authority in consultation with the safety advisory group. So my reading of that is, if the licence... Sorry. Sorry, shall I start again? So if the licence was granted and if the condition, and if it was granted in following the conditions that have been proposed in the operating schedule, one of the proposed conditions is that the event shall not take place until the draft event management plan has been agreed by the licensing authority in consultation with this safety advisory group, and then changes can only be made with the agreement of the licensing authority. And then there's a final submission of the event management plan at least 14 days ahead, and again, no changes without the agreement of the safety advisory group. So my reading of that is, if the draft event management plan has not been agreed by the licensing authority, the event can't take place.
Thank you, Phil. It's really helpful, and I just wanted to ask that question for those listening and online. And Chair, back to you.
Yeah, sorry, Chair.
Sorry, I just need to bring in my licensing team leader.
Thank you, Chair. If conditions are broken or not met, it doesn't necessarily stop the event. What will happen is we could prosecute on those conditions. The Safety Advisory Group have some tools at their disposal. They can put letters of non-support in, which could affect insurance for the event, but they have no legal ability to actually stop an event. Okay, so stopping can be done by fire. It could be done, I'm not sure if it can be done by the police, but it just because they're not complying with the conditions wouldn't necessarily stop it. However, there is always, as the applicant has said, there is the opportunity to review a licence. Now, if a licence were reviewed and the licence were withdrawn, that would stop the event. Well, technically, it wouldn't stop the event. It would mean that we would prosecute for carrying out an unlicensed event after the fact.
Elaine, it would. I don't know if it would reassure everybody, but those conditions have been written with the intention of placing the licensing authority, of which you are all members, with complete control on this. And I can reassure you that the applicant has no intention of running any event in defiance of the licensing authority. The licensing authority, according to that license, have complete control upon whether this event goes ahead or not, and takes its advice from the Safety Advisory Group, who are the expert body in Dorset at looking at event management plans and assessing whether they're safe or not.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Aileen, I take it that if the event management plan is unsatisfactory and the SAG comment, Fire Brigade could withdraw their permission for the event to take place if the licence was granted. But would the licence be reviewed before the event if the event management plan was unsatisfactory?
It could be. So the licensing authority, as a responsible authority, could review the licence at any point in time from when it's granted to just before the event. I think we'd have to allow, it couldn't be done 24 hours before the event, but yeah, they could do.
Thank you, Aileen. Just to kind of like reiterate then, so one of our conditions should be to have an event management plan, if the licence were granted, in place with consultation for the SAG 4 months before the event.
Chair, if you're asking for my opinion, normally these conditions can be written in any way that you deem to be appropriate. You can say that they need to put the draft plan in a certain time before the event. You can also specify that the agreement or the sign-off needs to be done a certain time before the event. Normally, the conditions that are proposed are actually fairly normal in that you agree, you get to a point with an event management plan where it is agreed by the SAG. Technically, it's not signed off or approved, but there are ways around that. And then any changes to that need to be notified and agreed after that point, because it always has to be a living document, because it has to be able to be changed in response to circumstances. So, yeah.
So just asking you, Mr. Semper, would that be acceptable, that you're happy to have a sign-off 3 months before the event?
Look, there's only one licensing authority in this meeting, and it ain't me, it's you. If that's what you want, then you will endorse it, what you want. It would be nice if whatever condition is arrived at is also the same one that applies to the 12 or 14 other licensed events that I read off beforehand. There will be a model condition somewhere within Elaine's reach, all about how many months and how many weeks and how many days sign off at the different stages. But we will accept whatever you're prepared to give us, sir. I just ask you to treat us the same as you do Purbeck Valley, Wonky Donks, B-side to Seaside, World of Love, Stomping into Quamps and Chesel Rocks.
We don't need to go through them all.
Okay, right, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's the questions over from the councillors, and now we go to the responsible authority, the police. Have you got any questions?
The only question I had was, I think, fairly evident. I presume that you've not visited the site.
You assume correctly, sir. Yes, I have not.
Yes. Really, beyond that, I have no real questions, sir. No.
Yeah, while we're here, another person's online, I do believe, and that's one of the advocates or the applicant, Elaine.
Reba, I believe the chair's addressing you.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, I'm a colleague of Nick Semper's, and I've had some struggles getting online this morning. I just wanted to comment. It's actually a little bit past the moment now, but as up till December 2023, I've spent 30 years as a licensing officer myself in 9 different authorities, and I've worked with many SAGs. My confidence in this application comes not from the license application on paper, but on the reliance upon qualified expert professionals who have a detailed and intimate knowledge of their own location and what the amenity can provide and support, and on the dedication of this applicant to work with those officers to achieve the best outcome for everyone. So really, I just wanted to echo the comments of my colleague Nick, in that the reference to the event management plan on the face of it seems to refer to the plan, but really it's a reference to the confidence of your staff, your qualified officers and your experts in your area. And that includes the road traffic systems. Our safety advisory groups have always involved the highways team. And so the size and scale of this event and what ultimately is approved at the beginning will reflect what the officers believe is appropriate in all those ways. So
yeah, thank you.
That's the only thing I wanted to say.
We've had that explained in quite
Thank
detail.
you.
Yeah,
thank
you
you.
for that. Okay, right. So thank you, Mr. Bean. Anybody? So now we go to the parish council, and questions. Questions for the applicant.
I'm Jackie Saul, Vice Chair of Broad Windsor Group Parish Council. I'm not sure where to start, because obviously this festival is planned for July, and I presume the applicant does realise that this is a farming area, and literally we have 24/7 vehicles. They are silaging, they're getting in it's literally 24/7 with the tractors and trailers. And the road system, like you were mentioning, I'll sit down again. It is on, isn't it?
That's better. That's better. So it's questions for the applicant at the moment. I think you were making a statement rather than a question.
Okay, is it working again now? Thank you. Has he taken into account that the road system in this area, I think there is one C road, the rest are B roads. But in July, 24/7, we have silaging, we have farm tractors literally 8 a.m. No, I mean, they work 24/7 because they're contractors. And these vehicles are producing food. What was the next one? Oh, yes. Broad Windsor has got a population of 1,372. How would he feel having somebody moving into his adjoining field, you know, with, well, more than quadrupled the number of people? And by the way, also you mentioned about wild weeing into the river. I mean, honestly, do you just believe that's the only way water gets into a river? It gets in through the land. And also with any other substances, they can get into the ground and into the crops, and that has ongoing effects. They had that actually at Withy Farm with cows, because what they eat is what's been left in the ground. So can you answer those questions? Thank you.
Over to you, Nick, but I think some of them were statements rather than, and they're outside the licensing objectives for the site. But if you could answer your best, please.
I mentioned wild weeing because that appears in several of the representations. Okay, so I'm sorry if you thought I was being dismissive on that, but I was actually addressing the substance of the representations against this application. I think we've done traffic management to death. I think that, well, out. You're just going to have to give me a second. I have a very disabled little boy who's just walked in on me, and I don't know where his mum's gone. So just give me a second.
Chair, I've actually got the answer to another question you were asked as well. The nearest property is 200 metres away.
I'm so sorry about that, guys. It's something I have to live with, and his mum's supposed to be looking after him this morning, and she must have been called away or something. So I've now dealt with that. Okay, so the traffic management we've done today, you're right, there were quite a few statements there. Can you remind me what the question was again, please? Sorry.
Bearing in mind that this area is used 24/7, what are you planning to get? How are you planning to get your vehicles on site?
Okay, yes, like I said, that will form part of the traffic management plan. Yeah, okay.
And you also mentioned public transport. There is none.
Well, no, I didn't. I asked a question about whether public transport would be used by the applicant to deliver people to and from the site. You can clearly hire public service vehicles for such a purpose, ma'am. So I'm sorry if you were confused by my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Okay, so now we're going to, there's no more questions, which I don't believe there are. Our legal representatives would like to say something.
Thanks, Chair. It's a question for Mr. Semper, really, in that my understanding is that the application is made on the basis of one event per year, and if that's right, and if the licence were granted, would the applicant be willing to accept a condition to that effect?
Yes, sir. It is one summer festival per year, and we gave specific dates for this year, but clearly we've been overtaken by events, and then it's just and the license has been written so that can be replicated year on year as and when the festival grows. But yes, our instructions are it's for one event per year for 3.5 days. Well done.
Right, thank you very much. While we're about it, I'd just like to point out that actually that weekend you've highlighted to be the festival of this year, I know you're not going to have it, happens to be the start of the school holidays. So the traffic in Dorset is horrendous at that time of the year as well. So just thought I'd make that point.
And it's a fair point. I will certainly feed that back to the applicant, sir.
Okay, so now the responsible authority, the police, anything to say, Mr. Bean?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's very difficult, as you've noted. We're here with a chicken and an egg. I have a note here from the SAG meeting on the 8th of February of this year that two members of that, one being the chair, Mr. Ian Carter, had met with a gentleman called Paul Budden of Wessex Safety Services to suggest that the clients for this contact the SAG as soon as possible because of the size it's taking place and consultation was needed. I don't believe that ever took place, which is, I think, why we are now in the position of it being postponed from this year to next year. That's just for a bit of information from my perspective. As we've noted, the event management plan it hangs on this event management plan. You've obviously seen the application. There are a lot of conditions in there which the applicants are putting forward to cover all the licensing objectives. I would say that all of those should appear in an event management plan, and I believe, as it says, the event management plan at number 21 will be prepared for the location where the event will take place. Now, that, again, is crucial, Chair, as you and I know, because I too have visited the site, and we know what we perceive are the difficulties of transport around there, of its entrance and everything. And I believe that on a line of public safety, if I remember rightly, as you go through the first gate, there is a big electricity pylon there, which says on it, danger of death, which is perhaps not the ideal thing for festival goers to see as they arrive. But the event management plan must, as you have said, address all the issues that need to be addressed within there. And the crucial thing that I would say to the applicants is they must put forward what they believe will be the items which will satisfy the Safety Advisory Group. And the advisory group will advise on those matters. They will be there just to give their advice. So the main bulk of what is required must come from the applicants. The Safety Advisory Group are not there initially to say, I think you should think of this, I think you should think of that, I think you should think of the other. They will advise on the full event management plan when it is produced and then give their opinion, be it environmental health, fire, South West Ambulance, as to the provisions which are needed within there. So that like I say, is crucial, and I understand exactly what you've said with your legal advisor. Is once this license is granted, is it granted with the event management plan? It is a little bit in the background, but I've found with my experience as well that usually the only hurdle anybody has to get over is to get themselves a premises license. That is virtually the only hurdle. There are then conditions obviously linked to premises licenses, which are usually dealt with perhaps at a review when things have gone wrong. But that can only be done, like I say, normally when things have gone wrong. So I find it difficult with this one, like I say, it would have been far better, I believe, if the applicants had come before the Safety Advisory Group initially and then submitted the application, which, if you wish to do so, that could happen because it's now not going to take place until 2025. But those are the only points that I would make. The only other point, again, as has been picked on, this is a family-friendly festival, as we are told. Again, from my experience, if it's family-friendly, why do we need to be drinking till 3 o'clock in the morning? You know, that's a question, you know, that I would always ask. And there is obviously, as I've noted, more opportunity for antisocial behaviour with alcohol, certainly at festivals. And again, just one more point that I would make before I'll finish. Just deal with this application. We aren't worried about Glastonbury. We aren't worried about Chisel Rocks. We need to deal with what's in front of us. And it doesn't matter in any way, shape or form what those other festivals, wherever they be in the country, have produced. You, gentlemen, lady, please deal with the one that's in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Questions, councillors? No questions for Councillor Fry.
Yeah, just a bit more regarding the sort of licence till 3 o'clock. You've actually said on Friday and Saturday night, but I've noticed in the application it is for Thursday as well, with music actually stopping at midnight. And it is a family friendly, and there are properties nearby. So I think it's possibly not just crime, but also public nuisance for late drinking. Could you make a comment on that, please?
There's always the possibility with late drinking that there will be issues, whether these be crime and disorder, nuisance from noise. Our main perspective from the police is obviously the crime and the disorder. We won't see any issues of crime and disorder there. And again, if it was to be till 3 o'clock in the morning, that's something which the applicants should consider and place within their event management plan for any other body that they may believe would assist in that, in ensuring that objective is maintained, prevention of crime and disorder.
Right, thank you, Mr. Bean. So, any questions by the applicant for Mr. Bean?
No, absolutely not. I agree with the majority of what he says. You know, we have no interest in there being crime and disorder issues or public nuisance issues or traffic issues there either. And yeah, you're right. With the operation of a safety advisory group, what you do is you create your event management plan in accordance with the Purple Guide, and you present it to them. And you are clearly going to put in some time some mileposts or milestones around the timings of those submissions. And
sorry, is this a question for Mr. Bean?
No, you're right, absolutely right. I agree with everything he said, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we go over to the parish councillors. Have you got any questions for Mr. Bean? Aileen, sorry, have you got any questions now? Right. So now we go over to the parish councillors. What would you like to say?
I was just mulling over the fact that Broad Windsor area is 2.5 square miles, I think, 3 square miles, and that's 1,300 residents. This is one field with 5,000 people. It kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from, but we can only consider the licensing objectives. So that's what we will take into consideration when we make our recommendation or whatever we come up with. Any questions for the residents from councillors? No. From applicant? No. Mr. Semper?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Aileen? Nothing. John Bean? Nothing for the rest. Okay. Well, I think we're nearly there. So now, yeah. Yeah, I think we do. Okay, so before we go any further, the parish council want to say anything more because we're in the summing up period now. No, we're not. Before we get to summing up, you've made all the representations that you want to make.
There's nothing, as I say, it's a difficult one because licensing is totally separate, but highways issues are, you've seen the roads for yourselves, they're horrendous. And of course, in the middle of summer, we've got holidaymakers, but more importantly, we've got food production. We have this whole area is tractors, trailers, and they're contractors, and we keep out of the way. And also, Seaborough, you've got horses. And I am very, very concerned about substances, including wee, going onto the ground because it will go into the river, and that, as I say, the River Axe is under threat now because the phosphate issue, people are having to make contingency plans for that. So environmentally, I think this is an absolute disaster.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I do appreciate that. So I'm going to ask legal just to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair. So during the hearing so far, there are a number of questions that you asked, which were probably more properly directed at the applicant, and I think Mr. Semper said that he was unable to answer them without the applicant being there. As a result, before we go to summing up and you retiring for your decision, I think you need to consider whether you need to adjourn the hearing in order that we can come back at a time when the applicant can attend and can answer the questions that you have. So short point is you need to consider whether you need the applicants to answer the questions that you posed in order to reach your decision. And if you do, you would need to adjourn. Slightly clumsy language, but you might want to consider a short adjournment now to consider whether you need a longer adjournment to enable the applicant to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Do you reckon you want the I think we'll take that opportunity to adjourn for 5 minutes so we can just pop out and have a quick chat before we come back in. Okay, so we'll should we say 10 to 12? We'll be back. So
Sorry, Chair, the other thing I'd add to that is for Mr Semper to confirm whether there's aside from those questions that the members are asked, whether he thinks that the applicant needs to attend in person to make any representation. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, look, yes, clearly the ideal situation is that the applicant is here to answer your direct questions. However, I think that you've been so thorough that we've addressed most of the issues that have been raised, and that the questions that I could not answer will all be addressed within the event management plan, signed off by, signed off by the safety advisory group, then placed before the licensing authority, and the licensing authority, in accordance with the conditions of this license, have the yay or nay on whether such an event can go ahead. So I think we're actually in a good position to press ahead today, but that's just my opinion.
okay, thanks, Mr. Samper. Appreciate that. So we're going to adjourn now and come back at 10 to. Okay. Mr. Samper back on. Yes, thank you. Right, so everybody's here, so we'll now come to order. And so it's just a summing up. Oh, thank you, Phil. The decision we reached is that we'll have no effect on the questions asked, and we're quite happy to continue with the hearing. So we're now at summing up, and we do that in reverse order. So if the parish council would like to sum up, I know we've heard what you said. If you've got anything else to add to what you've already said, we'll be happy to hear it now.
We are just very concerned about the disruption, but also the, well, transport issues, transport plans, but also the amount of people and the, you know, the waste disposal is going to be horrendous, and any runoff into the river, catastrophic.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming. Now we're summing up now, lads. Mr. Bean.
Yeah, the only thing that I would make comment on, as we know this all surrounds an event management plan, I would just hope that when that event management plan is produced for the SAG, it is done by somebody who is competent in that field, who has obviously taken account of the location and can provide really all the answers before the SAG ask the questions. In other words, I'm looking for something fully comprehensive, which the SAG will really only have to go through thoroughly, but just tick boxes without having to come back with any serious demanding questions of the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Now the applicant for the applicant.
Okay. Right. Panel. Chair, councillors, this hearing is simply about whether this application for a modest pop-up annual music festival operating these hours in accordance with this operating schedule, including the comprehensive raft of conditions and conducted only in accordance with an event management plan signed off by the Safety Advisory Group, which will deal with the characteristics of the location, traffic, sanitation, and environmental issues, all included. Right? It's just a question of what sits before you, whether it will undermine or promote the licensing objectives. Very clearly, throughout all of this, our position is that it will not undermine them, and nearly all the responsible authorities raise no issues with its substance, its content, and the additional guaranteed safeguards enshrined within any concomitant event management plan signed off by the SAG. Now, so consequently, I respectfully request that you do indeed grant this application for the premises licence as sought, supported by the comprehensive route of effective conditions and any others you may deem appropriate and proportionate, and that you wish this small festival every ongoing success going forward with this new venture. So thank you very much indeed for your time. You've been incredibly thorough. I take my hat off to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samper. Aileen.
I think everybody's said enough. Thank you.
Well, this has been a rather long meeting. It started rather late, I have to say. But I thank everybody for their input. The ladies that came from Bald Windsor area parish councils, thank you very much for your attendance today. Much appreciated. Mr. Bean, thank you, councillors. And thank you very much, Mr. Samper, for eventually getting on the line, even I know it was a bit arduous to start with.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Right. So just to sum up, we will leave now and make our decision in exempt. We will make sure that everybody's got that decision within 5 working days. If anybody wants to appeal, they have 21 days to appeal that to Weymouth Magistrates Court if they're not happy with the decision. Anything else, Phil, that I haven't covered?
No, Chair, just a technicality point that you won't be moving into exempt business. You'll be retiring to consider your decision in a private hearing without the public in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Phil. Much appreciated. So with no further ado, we'll close this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank